Thompson, and Chris Paul. 60 minutes before every game, we get you ready for tip. It's Warriors Live, and it starts now.
All right, what's going on, everyone? Evan Giddings with you live from the 95.7 The Game studios here on a gorgeous Easter Sunday. Happy to all those of you that celebrate. To those that don't, it's a gorgeous day in the Bay and a gorgeous day for a potential 4-1 road trip for the Golden State Warriors as they take on the San Antonio Spurs. An hour from now, tip-off at 4 o'clock. Tim Roy's got the action for you, so keep it locked right here on 95.7 The Game. This is Warriors Live presented by Xfinity, the Xfinity 10G network made for streaming live sports. The Warriors right now stand tied for a season high, 5 games above 500, right now in 10th place in the Western Conference. Still looking up at the 9th place Lakers, a game and a half back of them. And of course, the wins that came in Florida, as well as on Friday night in Charlotte. Very important to keep the streaking Houston Rockets off the Warriors' heels, who have won 11 in a row. So as we head toward the final month of April, which the Warriors got a jam-packed schedule, they are right in the thick of things. They have everything in front of them. The path to the play-in tournament or beyond, potentially, as far as a 7 or 8 seed, still not insurmountable. 3 games out of 8th right now with 9 to play, looking up at the Lakers as well as the Kings. But the Warriors have done it all on this road trip, primarily on the backs of their defense. I mean, that has been their calling card as of late. It has been their calling card since they have been a team that since, I believe it's January 17th, have won the second most games in the NBA. More on that in just a moment. But they have held their last 3 opponents to under 100 points for the first time this season. Locked up Miami, depleted Miami team, albeit, but 92 points for them. Orlando, an offensively struggling group, but still 93 points allowed against the Magic. And then against Charlotte, allowed 97 points on the road. The only time that that's happened prior to was, ironically, during the 2021-22 championship season. Now, you might say, well, what's the difference? I mean, it's 2 years ago. I mean, it's very different teams, obviously. And now that the Warriors are all of a sudden going to summon the best in championship required defense to get this thing done. But I do think it reminds me of why that specific team was so successful. And really the streaks and stretches that we've seen this particular iteration of Warriors basketball be successful. It's been because of what they've been able to do defensively. It's because of Draymond Green playing center field. It's because of players like Andrew Wiggins or Jonathan Kuminga, who's out tonight again with knee tendonitis, as point-of-attack defenders. It's because of help defense, and it's because of emerging young talent, like Brandon Bajemski, who's a smart defender, like Trace Jackson-Davis, who's coming off a 3-block performance against the Hornets and has given the Warriors a viable number 5 alongside Draymond to play interior D. So right now, 3 consecutive games holding teams to under 100 points is not necessarily insignificant, though the opponents they did it against might not wow you. Because the Warriors in 2022, as offensively geared as you might remember them with Curry and, of course, Poole, Klay Thompson being back off injury and all the rest, that was the number 1 defensive rating in the NBA. They were so good consistently at the beginning of that season because how they were able to lock up and how they were able to get stops when they needed to. On Wednesday, that was really the first time that I felt, even with Draymond not on the floor, that the Warriors were able to get defensive stops when they needed to in crunch time against a quality opponent, a 5th seed in the Eastern Conference being the Magic. So we'll see if they can continue that tonight, again, against a San Antonio Spurs team that is last in the West, that has the 3rd worst record in the NBA, but, to their credit, did beat the Warriors 2 meetings ago without the help of Victor Wembanyama, who is coming off of perhaps the most sensational rookie game that I have seen in a long time. So the Warriors are 5 games above 500, 39-34, Spurs 18-56, and the Warriors are trying to wrap up a 5-game roadie with a W. And it's funny too, like, you know, that 22 team in the championship, you know, we talked about the defense, some of the parallels there. But not even that team was doing the types of things that the Warriors are doing this season on the road, especially in comparison and contrasted with how just average, or actually a game below average because they're 18-19 at home, below 500 they've been at home. This has been a road Warriors team. And to me, that signals that they are connected, certainly more so than last year. You know, the talent remains to rise to the occasion on specific evenings. But when you're playing good basketball on the road, it means generally you're a good team. You look at all the teams above them in the Western Conference right now and just kind of checking out the standings. Like the best teams in the NBA also, non-coincidentally, play their best on the road. Minnesota, 25 wins. That's best in the Western Conference. Dallas has got 22. New Orleans got 21. Has got 22. So, you look at those teams that are in the 20s as far as road wins. In the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics are the best team in the NBA. They're 26-13. Even a team like Milwaukee has been about 500 on the road. So the fact that the Warriors have been able to post now 21 wins out of their 36 road games has been very impressive to me. And that might be because a lot of people are still, clinging to hope that they can turn water into wine as far as the rest of this season, make the play-in tournament, get to a postseason series, and see what happens. To me, I guess the one thing you might cling to is the fact that they've played consistently on the road, because that's what they're probably going to have to do in order to first get into the playoffs and then, of course, play a first-round series and play 4 of those 7 games outside of Chase Center. So what they've done on the road has been impressive. They've won 13 of their last 16 road games. Now, the one thing that does present itself as a bit of a Debbie Downer is the fact that those 3 losses are against good basketball teams and playoff teams. They had a loss, of course, to Boston, where they got blown out. They lost to Dallas on the road, and then they lost in close fashion this most recent weekend against Minnesota. So that is where the Warriors, I think, have righted the ship in a sense, because they take care of business and have taken care of business all season long against road teams that they should beat. But how do they go into the Lions' den? How do they go into hostile environments against quality opponents? They have not been able to yet prove that consistently. And they won't be able to prove it today against the Spurs. But at this point in the season, when you got Houston on your heels, you just need to stack wins. And the fact that they can put together another 4-1 road trip, the Warriors have not had a sub-500 road trip this season beyond 4 games since I think it was November. And really that first road stretch of the year from October into early November has set the tone for what has become a very good season for the Warriors outside of the Bay. Since February 5th, this is the number I was referencing earlier, so I apologize, I said January 17th. Since February 5th, the Warriors have the most road wins, and they have the highest winning percentage on the road in the NBA. Since January 30th, the Warriors have the second most wins in the NBA, only behind Boston. So since the calendar turned to February, in which ideally you're supposed to be playing your best basketball into and then after the All-Star break, they have 20 wins behind Boston's 22. They have 13 road wins. That is number 1 in the NBA, and I think it's because of their ability to defend, and that is something that travels throughout all sports. Where, baseball just started. If you got good starting pitching, you're going to be able to go on the road and win games. In football, if you got defense, that will travel. The offense sometimes is up, it's a little bit down. And with the Warriors, it's been all over the place this year. But lately, their defense has been winning them basketball games. And that's something that should be good enough to beat a team like San Antonio today in their 4th and final attempt to take down the San Antonio Spurs. This is Warriors Live here on 95.7 The Game. Evan Giddings with you. I also got you on Warriors wrap-up after the game. A couple of big picture things I want to look at. Of course, assuming the Warriors get the job done. If not, we got a whole lot to talk about if they go 2-2 this season against a Spurs team that is number 1, the youngest in the NBA, number 2, the worst team in the Western Conference, and number 3, the 3rd worst team by record in the NBA. Now, one thing the Warriors are also, I guess, amidst of is potentially making some history with how good they've been on the road and, of course, how not good they have been at home. So should the Warriors finish with an overall winning record and a home record below 500, they would be just the 2nd team in the NBA for that to be the case. The other team is the 2021-22 Brooklyn Nets. They went 44-38, and they were 20-21 at home. Now, the Warriors right now have 4 more home games left, so essentially they got to win 3 of them to be above 500, and then they got 5 more road wins, and they're pretty much guaranteed with a win today to be above 500 on the road. Not necessarily guaranteed, however, to make the play-in tournament and, of course, make the postseason. That, by the way, is according to Elias Sports Bureau. Which brings us to our injury report. Tonight's injury report is brought to you by Boxer & Gerson, Northern California's premier workers' compensation law firm, helping injured workers get their lives back for over 40 years. For more information, visit boxerlaw.com. The Warriors do have a couple of players on the injury report, most notably Jonathan Kuminga. He is out tonight again with, I think it's like bilateral knee tendonitis is the official designation from the official injury report. Klay Thompson still is questionable. He was a late scratch against Charlotte. And then, of course, Dario Saric is also out tonight against the Spurs, but he's been out of the rotation. So Klay and Kuminga, interested to see what the Warriors do if both of them are out. And, of course, Kuminga has missed the last 2 games. The Warriors have won both of them against opponents that we felt like they should have beaten, even though they had to really dig deep and muster and conjure a gut check victory against Orlando for various reasons. So working without JK and Clay, it's interesting because Kuminga has been an Iron Man for really the entirety of the season. This will be his third straight game that he's missed, but he's only missed 4 total this year. He has been available and really has been available since the Warriors drafted him 3 years ago. Whether he's been playing or not, he's been in the rotation or not, it's a different story, but he has always made himself available. And so the fact that the Warriors are not getting Kuminga down the stretch of this season could point to a little bit of attrition, could point to the fact that this is his real, he played a lot last year, but this is essentially the first season in which he's had to manage an entire workload starting and will start, assuming he's back in the near future, about 50 games playing around 30 minutes a night. That's a full season's 82-game workload over the course of those 50 starts, and that's the first time that Jonathan Kuminga has had to overcome that. And so he might be wearing down a little bit, but I also think the Warriors are being precautionary with him, understanding his importance, especially on the offensive side of the basketball. And they need that because he's tallied double figures in 49 of the last 51 games that he's played in, including the last 11. So when Kuminga's on the court, he scores. He helps the Warriors offensively. He also helps them with what they're able to do on defense. And meanwhile, while he's been out, Andrew Wiggins has been able to step up. Not sure if there's necessarily a correlation there, but Wiggins with 20 points tonight, it would be the first time he scored 20-plus points in 3 straight games this year. And I think against Orlando, that's the best basketball game I've seen him play when they needed him. When Curry was struggling, when Clay was struggling, he took over periods of that basketball game, particularly in the fourth quarter. And then against Charlotte, he was also able to play a playmaking role because without Kuminga, there's a little more touches to go around. The ball is going to stick when it gets to Wiggins' hands, but he can essentially be the Kuminga as well as Wiggins when they needed him to, with also, of course, Klay Thompson being out. So shots were available for him, but he also had to pass more, tied a season high with 8 assists, also grabbed 8 rebounds in addition to his 20 points. So without JK, Wiggins has stepped up and shown out, and I expect him to do the same tonight against a depleted San Antonio Spurs team, because taking a look at their side of the injury report, they're missing a couple of their big boys. Jeremy Sohan is out tonight with an ankle injury, as is Keldon Johnson. So 2 of their starters are down. Also, Dominic Barlow and Charles Bassey on the list. Also saw Devin Vassell, who is their second leading scorer. He is currently questionable, but I'm assuming he's going to play tonight because that was kind of a late injury designation on the official report. But pretty much everything is about Victor Wembanyama with the San Antonio Spurs. The present, the future, everything is about Levic. Even though they're missing 2 of their top 4 scorers, Keldon Johnson is also a top 4 rebounder. Sohan is their second best rebounder, one of their primary playmakers. For a team that, you look up and down the team stats, they're by no means wowing anyone. But the one area that they have been very good this year is moving the basketball. They're second in terms of assists per game in the association. So without one of those guys that initiates the offense in Sohan, and I think at the beginning of the year, they even talked about this guy playing point guard for them, they're going to miss him, and so I expect the Warriors to hopefully take advantage. The difference is, in the past, a guy like Victor Wembanyama was not there in the middle. This guy very may well be Defensive Player of the Year his rookie season. He's coming off of one of the more historic rookie performances ever, scoring 40 points, grabbing 20 rebounds, and also dishing out 7 assists. We just have never seen a player like this. And so while people might not be super excited about this matchup, right? You got an 18-win Spurs team. The Warriors are trying to wrap up a 5-game roadie with their 4th win in as many games. You get a chance to watch a player that hopefully is going to be in the NBA and healthy for a long time, because he is an absolute game changer. And even just going back to preseason, the first time the Warriors saw him, there was a sequence in the first quarter of a preseason game in which he blocked Andrew Wiggins' shot from, it seemed like, the lane, drove up the court, and then stopped and popped for a transition 3. There just aren't many players, especially at 7'4", that can make those kinds of plays. He might be the only player that can make some of the plays that we're going to see tonight, again at 4 o'clock live in San Antonio on 95.7, the game with the voice of the Warriors, Tim Roy. You just don't see guys like Victor Wembanyama very often, and he's one of one. He's an original, and there's a reason why he was the number 1 overall pick, sure, but there's also a reason why I think even watching a couple of his games, you can see that this dude is going to be the face of a franchise. He could potentially be the face of the NBA, because there's no one that we've seen like him in the past packaged into the physical specimen and body that he possesses. So he's going to be essentially on his own tonight with a couple of his running mates, Sohan and Johnson, being out this evening. And the other part of this, too, in regards to the Warriors, Klay Thompson is questionable. He missed the last game due to knee tendinitis, so it's just something that feels like it's been going around a lot lately. JK had it. Pajemski missed a game last week with knee soreness. But one thing to keep an eye on for Klay is the fact that, he and Curry, whenever there's a three-point record involved, their names are going to be in there. Klay Thompson has 2,448 career three-pointers. That is 2 away from Kyle Korver for 6th most all-time on the NBA three-point list. And though Klay he's going to be probably top 5, top 3 by the time his career's over for sure, but perhaps even by the end of this season. It's always funny, you hear these greatest shooters ever, and Klay Thompson, in my mind, is the second best behind Curry that I've ever seen. But Kyle Korver could shoot the hell out of the basketball. That guy was an absolute deadeye, and I think 1 year in Utah, he shot north of 50% from three-point range. It's something that I have not seen. And so the fact that Klay Thompson has a chance to pass him up, a dude that played 15 years in the league, is very impressive as well. All right, our Take It to the Bank prediction tonight brought to you by Fremont Bank, full-service banking, no compromises. It's going to be about Trayce Jackson-Davis. I think 10 rebounds are on the table for TJD tonight because, number one, I think they're going to be down Kuminga, and Kerr has shown a propensity as of late to pair Draymond with TJD. I think that's smart for a couple of reasons. One, it does give you more size. Whether you're playing Wembanyama or another team, I think TJD has shown that he himself is ready for these kinds of games, is ready for this moment, even as a rookie. And also, too, I love how it takes a little pressure off of Draymond. Now, I've had some discussions with people about the actual workload or how much more difficult it is to play the 5 as opposed to the 4. But Draymond Green said it, I think it was a week and a half ago, via Anthony Slater. Anytime you're boxing out 7-footers an extra 15, 20 times a game, that takes its toll. I think it's a reason why he missed the Dallas game a week before last with lower back soreness. It's been something that's building, and it's something that you don't want to let get in front of what the run is that you're trying to make at this point. So I like how they can use TJD, number one, to keep a little bit more pressure off of Draymond until he has to play at the 5, probably down the stretch of basketball games. And then also the fact that Trayce Jackson-Davis has just simply earned it. I mean, this guy is a lob threat that the Warriors have not had in some time. He has shown an ability to provide rim protection. Again, he had 3 blocks against Charlotte. And he's also just a heady player. He's a smart player. He understands where to be on the court, slipping screens, presenting screens. And it's funny, too, because in the month of March, you're watching a bunch of college players, and like I was watching Zach Edey earlier for Purdue, and he had a hell of a basketball game, I think close to 40 points and 20 rebounds. But those kind of guys who have played in big moments and big games for a long period of time, Trayce Jackson-Davis played 120 thereabout college basketball games in addition to the amount of times he was in the NCAA tournament. So for me, Trayce Jackson-Davis is a guy that I am looking forward to watching tonight, but also for the rest of the season because he played 33 minutes against Charlotte. And right now, as a starter, through 13 games, TJD's averaging 13 and 8 on 70% shooting from the floor. So he's able to clean things up. He cleans the glass. He's able to clean and erase a couple of shots off the opposition. And also, he finishes around the rim when the ball is presented to him. I mean, I guess he could work on his free throw shooting at this point, but to ask that from a rookie, what he's done has been really impressive to me. And so that is our Fremont Bank Take It to the Bank prediction. Trayce Jackson-Davis will grab 10 rebounds tonight against the San Antonio Spurs. As for What's on Tap, brought to you by Farmers Brewing. Have you tried Farmers Brewing yet? If not, it's time to put your lips on a Farmers. The final 8 games after today. I mean, the Warriors got one today. Again, 4 o'clock tip, San Antonio. Tim Roy's got the rest of your pregame programming coming up at the bottom of the hour. But the Warriors got 8 games, mind you, in 14 days. The final 17 games of this season for Golden State have been condensed, and they've gotten through now about half of them, or they will have after tonight. But they've been in 30 days. It's been absolutely sandwiched because of the unfortunate passing and the tragic passing of Dejan Milojevic that forced the Warriors to move those 2 games that they had to miss in Utah and then Dallas. They're having the makeup game of that Dallas game come up on Tuesday against the Mavericks. And that would have been a stretch where the Warriors could have got a little bit of extra rest instead of the day on, day off, day on, day off, they're now looking at, they would be looking at 3 days of rest after today, but instead they got to gear up and play Tuesday before another back-to-back on Thursday and Friday. So as they look towards the end of this season, this is really an absolute sprint for Golden State, and I'm very curious to see how the bodies of the older players hold up, but also apparently with guys like Kuminga that have been Iron Men and have been asked to play heavier minutes, how some of those players that are younger also react to their first, I think, full season in which they're being asked to play roles that have been larger than before, how they are able to stand up or if they wear down, because beyond this week, they'll have another back-to-back to end the season. That marks 3 straight weeks with back-to-back games in which they have not had more than 2 days of rest. That is extremely rare if you look around the schedules in the rest of the NBA. And so because of what happened to the Warriors earlier this year, they're being penalized in a way for it at the tail end because all of their games have to be log-jammed in. You look at Dallas on Tuesday, Houston, and then Dallas again on Friday. Sundays against Utah. So another 4-game week for the Warriors. If you include today, it would be a 5-game week, 2 straight weeks. And then, of course, the final week of the season, Tuesday against the Lakers, Thursday against Portland, Friday against New Orleans, and then Sunday against Utah. So the Warriors have had an absolute logjam of basketball set up for them down the stretch. And either we'll see them step up and we'll see them dig deep to grab some of these games heading into what probably is going to have to be a play-in tournament run for them just to get in. Like, the Warriors got a lot of basketball coming their way in the next few games. And that is why you need to grab today. Number one, you need to win today. And then you have important games against Dallas, which you could potentially use to leapfrog a team in front of you in the play-in scenario. And then, of course, the game against Houston, in which that might be the game that gets you into the 10 seed or to potentially the 9 if the Lakers fall out and Houston's able to keep and ride their hot streak. So a lot of basketball on deck for the Warriors, but of course, it all starts this afternoon in just about 30 minutes with the San Antonio Spurs. The Warriors right now 5 games above 500 at the Frost Bank Center in San Antonio, Texas. Game 74 of the season. It feels weird, but we are basically at the end. We are almost down the stretch of this basketball season that has been a roller coaster ride. It has been a topsy-turvy season in a lot of different ways. And you hope that games like tonight are ones that don't get too interesting, but are games that they can use to set up the next game. Because with not much rest, the Warriors basically have to build rest into these kinds of games. This might be a game tonight where you don't see Steph play more than 30 minutes. I think that's the game plan, to try and end this one early against a team that's missing Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sohan, 2 of their 5 starters and 2 of their top 4 scorers in this game. How can they, the Warriors, shrink this game for their older players to keep them fresh for a very heavy workload week coming up with Dallas twice and Houston, all 3 very important games moving ahead for the Warriors. And to their credit, they've been able to pretty much play consistently over the last now 2 months. March has been a little more up and down, but they finished above 500 if they win today. And they're coming off an 11-win February. Overall, they have the second most wins in basketball behind Boston, 20 of them since the start of February, and they have 13 road wins, which is the most in the association since the start of February. The Warriors have been road warriors this year, and I expect them to carry that on today against the San Antonio Spurs. All right, as we wind down here on Warriors Live, I want to remind you all that we have our Warriors wrap-up show coming up after the game. There's a couple things I really want to get into, assuming this game goes the Warriors' way. I want to get into Andrew Wiggins and his late performances. I want to get into what Klay Thompson might be setting himself up for this offseason. I also want to get into how the younger players are proving to me that they can present themselves for steadying roles in the future. Those are a couple of the big picture things I want to hit on. And of course, addition to the reaction of this game, the Golden State Warriors and the San Antonio Spurs come your way at 4 o'clock. But up next, we'll send things down to SA, where Tim Roy's hanging out for the rest of your pregame programming. My name is Evan Giddings, saying so long from the 95.7 The Game studios. We'll talk to you after the game. You've been listening to Warriors Live, presented by Xfinity, the Xfinity 10G network made for streaming live sports.
Getting your biggest tax refund from Jackson Hewitt can lead to some spirited reactions.
Jackson Hewitt!
Jackson Hewitt is so sure they'll get you your biggest refund that if they don't, you get your money back plus $100.
Jackson Hewitt!
Switch to Jackson Hewitt and